Hello, guys, and welcome back to another episode of the Joining Me Today podcast, presented by me, Bailey Lewis Smith, a guy who is so excited that season two of the Joining Me Today podcast is here. Yes, I'm actually launching a season two, and you might be wondering and stuff, Bailey, I don't care. Well, that's a bit mean. But anyway, and stuff. Yes, we are here and stuff like that for a season two and stuff. This is the first episode of the next season. I really wanted to for this next year of the show and stuff like that. This is the show's third year and stuff. We've already done 25 episodes, and I wanted to kind of use this as an opportunity to move into a next era of the podcast. We're not going to be having too much changes here on the main show and stuff like that. It's still going to be the show that you love or hate, but and so we're going to have a few things here and there that are going to be changing and stuff, and we're going to have a lot more sort of things around the podcast and stuff like that that are going to be sort of changing around whatever I'll be doing and stuff like that, an announcement sort of trailer or some announcement video or post or something at some point and stuff like that, properly delving into that. At this point in time that I'm recording this, that hasn't actually happened yet, but you will have some proper formal announcement and stuff regarding all of that. There's some very exciting things I've got lined up and stuff for sort of in the near future and the far future. So it's very good. And I'm so excited to jump into this episode because I've got fantastic guests to help kickstart, launch this next era and stuff of the podcast. But before we do, we still got to do the song recommendation. Even though it's season two, you got to do it. You know what I mean? It's a staple of the podcast. I've got to do it. And today's recommendation is actually going to be a song called We Make Hits by Yard Act. I'm going to go grab the vinyl because I always have to shaft my vinyl because I'm a saddo. But anyway, here is the vinyl and stuff like that here, and you'll see the song. Probably won't be able to see it here with through this webcam, whatever, but it's the second title just there and stuff. You probably can't see it, but is what it is and stuff. But yeah, Yard Act are a fantastic band. I recommended them on the show before and definitely didn't have to retract that recommendation because it was in the music awards and I realized the song came out the year before, not the year I was doing the music awards. I'm very smart and I definitely didn't change my decision at the last minute, meaning that it kind of then, oh, I actually forgot that wasn't this year. It was a whole thing. But anyway, and so it's a fantastic song. You guys should definitely go check it out. But anyway, now to dive into the main portion of this episode. I've rambled on long enough. You guys don't want to hear me. I know that and stuff. I'm just some boring British guy. I'm handsome, but I know I'm boring. But anyway, let's jump into the main portion of this episode. Welcome to the show from the show shows the stuff, get it? Because I said show and show again. Anyway, from the Continue show, welcome to the show, Nick Murphy. How you doing, sir?
I'm fantastic. How are you?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. And I'm so sorry you had to deal with that whole rambly intro.
No, it was very good. I was like, oh man, I should have prepared a song recommendation. I wasn't prepared.
Well, here's the problem. Now I'm going to ask for your song recommendation. So I hope you did
Oh
think of
my
something
God.
in the
No,
intermediary. So what's
I
your
was
song
like,
recommendation?
I don't even know. Yeah, dude, it's so hard, man. I keep going back to like older stuff all the time and keep finding like old stuff. Like I'm wearing this like Duran Duran shirt, and there's this one song on on at the very end of their Rio album called The Chauffeur, and it came up as like a recommendation one time, and I was like, what the hell is this? It was like this song that like this tonally I'd never heard of. I was like, oh man, this is really cool. It sounds like it's from a soundtrack. And then I was like, oh my God, it's Duran Duran. This is crazy. This is such a weird, like, not a hit, but like something really like intrigued me. And then I put the album on. It became one of my favorite albums of all time.
Oh, that's actually like brilliant and stuff. It's always great when you have that moment where it'll just be some random recommendation. It'll even be like a band you know or something. But it's amazing when like it's something that you now become really in love with. This simple moment, this simple recommendation from a playlist or something, and now it's like you find a whole new love. Like yeah, it must have been sort of amazing to think like, oh yeah, I found this new thing that I now really like.
Yeah, it's like, I mean, I used to the way I used to get new songs was like watching MTV when I was a kid and stuff, watching MTV, and like the only way I could get like new undiscovered songs was like, obviously the radio and MTV, but like I would buy soundtracks like nonstop because they always had these like, it would go from like the Crystal Method to like Metallica and like all these different bands that you'd never heard of. And you're like, oh, suddenly you're like exposed to all these things. And that's a great way. It was back then, it was like a great way to like find new stuff. But yeah, like when the algorithm finally hits you with something that's like nice, you're like, oh, all right, maybe this is working.
Yeah, no, it's definitely an amazing moment and stuff when that happens. And speaking, funny enough, you were delved into a little bit there about sort of MTV and in the past and all stuff like that. And the first question I'd actually like to jump in, and stuff is quite fitting, speaking about all that, the first question I'd love to jump into is sort of you obviously do a lot of work in the entertainment field and all that, from like sort of YouTube and stuff like that to like radio work and sort of other work and all that. But how did you sort of like, what was your relationship with entertainment sort of growing up, and has sort of working in entertainment and sort of media been something you've always wanted to do?
Yeah, it's funny. I like like mentioning MTV was like, um, music videos were like a big part of things that I really enjoyed. Um, watching them, it was kind of like I feel like when I started watching it was, probably around the time like Nirvana was around and with like alternative music was really big and MTV had like, really good music on there and these really like creative videos that would happen. So like my my origin from it is very like music video based. I remember I have this like super clear memory. There's a song by the band Wax. It's called California, and the video is just a one shot dolly, like it just moves like across the screen of this man running on fire. It's like when I saw it, it blew my mind. It was like the coolest video I'd ever seen. All one take, just this man running on fire in slow motion. It was really cool. And then they did this like MTV did this like making of that video. And they showed you like behind the scenes clips and stuff. And that's where I got introduced to Spike Jones, who was the director, who went on to direct and produce all kinds of things. He was part of like bringing Jackass to the mainstream. He's directed obviously like her and all these great music videos and all these great films and stuff. He's a really like prolific filmmaker, but he kind of had his hands in like all these different kinds of things, like from skateboarding to music videos to films and everything. So like that was a very moment where it was like, oh man, this thing that I'm observing and consuming and is like occupying part of my brain is actually being made by someone. It just never like clicked that these things were like crafted. They just like, existed and they just were entertaining to me. So I've always loved music videos, and that's kind of like where I wanted to like kind of like craft my career to make films and make short things and make music videos and make all kinds of things. So that's kind of where I got started from it.
It's actually quite interesting you say about sort of not thinking about the fact that people make the things that you're watching. It's such an obvious thing where you're like, of course people are making it. Of course there's a whole production team and all that behind it, but because of sort of how we consume media, it doesn't even cross your mind unless it's right in your face. It's like it just doesn't even make you. Well, I think it's something like The Office and stuff, and it's like this weird like Inception layer stuff because it's you don't even think the fact that there's a fake production team and then a real production team as well. You know what I mean? It's this whole sort of
Yeah.
thinking of we don't think about production and stuff. So it's quite interesting that you brought that up.
Yeah, there are different like layers and once you start peeling back those onion layers, you're just like, oh man, this is really interesting. Like, you may be like, oh, this I referenced Metallica earlier. So like, oh, there's a Metallica video, right? So like they made the music and there's a video of them. It's like, oh, well, they must have made it. And it's like, no, someone like directed them. And then you're like, oh, well, whoever directed it like shot it. It's like, no, there's a cinematographer who filmed it. And then there's like all these different like positions and things, this craftsmen that are putting this thing together that you just, you know, the veil gets lifted and you're like, oh wow, there's actually like a whole team of people that are doing these things. It's I always love that stuff. That stuff's always fascinated me.
Yeah, I could definitely relate with that and stuff with production and all stuff like that. I'm obviously producing this podcast, so I must have some love for media and production myself. So it's all very
Well,
fitting.
yeah. I mean, man, it's like you become a fan of something and you're like, oh, cool. And then once you dive into like actually see how it's done, you're like, yeah, there's a lot that goes into like making something that seems like you were saying with The Office, like for it to seem so effortless, there's a lot of work and a lot of like love that goes into it to make it that way.
Oh yeah, and stuff. And I love The Office praise as well. I'm a fan of The Office, so I'm always big on praising that
Yeah, dude, it's
show.
great.
100%. One of the things you're most sort of known for and stuff like that is your work with Continue and stuff like that
Mhm.
show that's been going 15 years now, I believe, from my
Yeah,
research.
it's
So like
crazy.
it
It's
must be
it's insane.
crazy for you to think that like it must be crazy you to think that this show's been going on so long and all that and like sort of when did like sort of it get started in the first place those 15 years ago?
Yeah, so when I was in college, I met my friend Josh Henderson. Um, we both went to community college together. We were in filmmaking classes, not together actually. I was like sitting in on this class that he was in. They were screening their work. The assignment was to make a music video. Josh had shot this music video, and he had used a song by this band Ozma that I really it was they were like one of my favorite bands, and still to this day. But they were just a band that people would just I don't know people like didn't like know about them. So he did this Ozma music video, and I was just like, who did that? And I talked to him afterwards, and we just like became friends after that. So Josh was my friend for a long time. When I was in college and I graduated, I started working for this company called Gamer Vision. They were like um, they were like a video game review website, so almost like IGN or something of that nature. But they also were big into like video content, so they really wanted to be like they wanted to kind of take the vibe of G4 and put it on the internet. So they hired me to make like these short parody movie trailers, but feature like being them video game heavy. So we made this Super Mario Brothers trailer over Quentin Tarantino's Inglorious. We took like Mario characters and put them in there. It was all live action and stuff. So we did that. That kind of got me on their radar. They hired me from that. And part of the idea of working there was we would come up with all these different show ideas to make like content to release every day. And one of the shows that we came up with was they had a show before that was called the first 45 or no, the last 45 or something, where they would play a game for a bit and they stopped doing it. And I was like, oh, we should do that, but like invert it so it's not very serious. We could just kind of have fun with it. And like the vibe that I like envisioned it to be with Paul Ritchie, who's on the show with me now still, and our friend Dominic Moschiti, who moved to LA and left the show. When we were talking about it, we wanted it to be the vibe of like a sleepover when you were a kid. Like you would have your friends sleep over on a Friday night. You would go to the video store, pick out a game off the shelf, and most times you didn't even know anything about it. You just knew like the cover or the name, or someone said that this game was good. So you would grab that. So you would rent it, get pizza and soda and stay up all night playing the game. So like that was kind of the vibe we wanted to go with where it's just like your friends hanging out, making making each other laugh and having fun playing this video game. And this is like 2009 at this point, so like there really wasn't a lot of content like that out there. So we started doing it, and at first when we started, the idea was going to be like two people and then a rotating third person. Then Paul came in, and we just like stuck with Paul. So it was me, Paul, and Dom for a bit. Um, Gamer Vision eventually went under. They kind of like lost their funding and shut down. But we were like, we made this thing, and we're finding some success with it and enjoying it, doing it ourselves. So I think we're just going to take it and do it without Gamer Vision. So I took some money and bought a green screen. We would shoot in my living room. And we still shoot in my living room to this day. But eventually Dom wanted to move to California. So he did that. And I brought in Josh. So now, for the past 12 years, man, 13, 14 years. I don't know at this point. It's hard to remember when Josh came on, but it's been me, Paul, and Josh doing the show since then. So the premise of the show is the three of us sit down, we play a game for 30 to 40 minutes. And by the end of that, we decide if if we're enjoying it or not having a good time, continue or game over. And really like the show isn't, it's a show about video games, but I don't like to think about it as a show about video games. For us, the vibe and the feeling and the fun of it was always that. It was just the video games were the delivery system for that. So it was really just about us making each other laugh, having a good time, but also it's about, we're playing a video game, and that's kind of like the featured content that you're seeing on screen. But a lot of it is like the humor is coming from what we're seeing on screen, what we're describing, things that are happening in our life. It's a very like chill kind of thing. And then we found some good success doing that show. And then we just like never stopped, like I think like we kind of came up in a time when a lot of that was YouTube stuff was kind of like blowing up, and you had like content creators that were being taken really seriously and like elevated to like celebrity status. But like that was never ever our intention. We just kind of like like caught this current that was happening, and just kind of like helped us grow. But like we were never like those kind of people to like chase that again, or like chase the clout, or um, you know, we're not going to do like our faces in the thumbnails, like, oh, like those kind of like shocking things. We just wanted to do our thing, and people, we have a really tight core fan group, and we're just happy to keep making it and just having fun doing it. That's the main thing. If it's not fun, then we're not going to do it anymore.
Yeah, and it's amazing and stuff that you guys and stuff like that are all still going and all that. And I actually find it interesting and stuff like that as well, like sort of talking about sort of the comedy of the show and stuff like that. One of the most interesting things I find about sort of, continuing all that is that, especially at the time when you guys were first coming up, you didn't really see a lot of people might say, does this really matter? But I sort of personally feel like it does. I feel like you guys had because you guys had a three-person dynamic, it was quite
Mm-hmm.
different to a lot of what you were seeing. A lot of the shows at the time, if they were doing something similar, let's play or sort of similar, sitting down and playing a game sort of shows, like commentary sort of like things, you would see either like it would just be one person on their own, or it'd be like two people and stuff like playing a game, or it'd be like a big group thing. You know what I mean? You'd
Yeah.
have like some sort of yeah, like four guys or sort of five guys or a rotating cast, like you said,
Mm-hmm.
and stuff like that. Would you say that sort of having that sort of three-person dynamic, like what would you say is sort of the impact of that, which people might not think about? It might sound silly, but I think you kind of know what I'm trying to get at.
Yeah, totally. No, I agree. Like, uh, continues let us still do some like the filmmaking things that we like and the storytelling things that we've done like short films and sketches still, like as we've done the show on as well. um and like when we're writing stuff, we find that like the three-person dynamic just works really well for us. We're just so comfortable with that, where you kind of have like, it's almost like the ego and the super ego kind of thing. And thinking about like other like, kind of like power trios that we can kind of like lean into, that, you got like the Ghostbusters, would in that first movie are kind of like that. Um, and it kind of lets us like play those up on the show too. Like the show is us having a good time, but like, there's like an artifice that we're putting forward. It's kind of like we're all kind of playing these like amped up versions of ourselves, where you know, it's fun to like play dumb for the sake of comedy, for someone else to have like a moment to shine kind of thing, or like to be antagonistic with someone. It kind of like it just kind of like helps the vibe of it helps the like the comedy come through and help like the fun time kind of shine
Yeah.
a little bit. Yeah, I mean, but like, yeah, we really kind of like settled into like the three-person like dynamic of the whole thing. And I agree, there's a lot of like, I think everybody who was doing it around that time was kind of like the one person in their group of friends that was into video games and into like content making. So they were like the person that like did it all. We were just lucky enough to like have the three of us in a similar mindset to do all that together with each other. Um, but yeah, I get it. It's hard. Like it's hard if you were by yourself. Like you would have to play the different roles and all do all the jobs and stuff. At least if there's three of us, we can like trade off a little bit on some of that.
Yeah, I can definitely, as somebody who used to do a bit of Let's Playing and stuff like that when I was younger, and sort of like when you were sort of just doing it sort of on your own and stuff like that, you can have some fun moments and all that, but you did feel a bit like you were kind of covering the air that other people would, unless you'd be
Sure.
editing a lot of dead air in it. So it's nice to have that more sort of group dynamic. And I think people like that, didn't they? They like that banter between mates and sort of a joke
Yeah.
between friends. And I think you guys really sort of captured that along with sort of a lot of other channels at the time. You really were sort of great pioneers in a way of sort of doing that sort of stuff.
From like a performance level, like when you're doing this, there's like a performance, like an area you're putting on that you kind of have to do whenever you're doing anything like on camera. Um, the nice thing is like the way we do it in a group, in a group dynamic is like there's like immediate feedback. Like if you like create something, you're creating it for an audience and you hope that it's connecting with them immediately. But for us, it was always like we were just kind of performing for the other two people in the room. And immediately if like something is like fun or working out, like you're getting a reaction, like they're laughing, you're laughing at them really laughing. It really like feeds into each other. And immediately if it's connecting or not. And we like as the years have gone on, that we know we're like, all right, we're not really getting a lot from this game or from this experience right now. We just need to kind of like amp up ourselves to make the extra funny part happen.
Yeah, and then you'll get that one game where it's providing loads of moments, and you're like,
Right.
"This is brilliant."
Yeah, yeah.
But
Yeah. We
yeah, go on. What are you gonna say?
No, 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 no. I was just agreeing with you.
Oh yeah, you should agree with me. I am very smart.
You're the host, man. I gotta agree.
Yeah, I'll pay you the £20 every time I tell you to agree with me. The twenty
Oh man.
dollars.
We gotta get the conversion rate going and make sure it's working out in my favor.
Well, we was actually joking. That's actually a funny sort of off-camera thing. We was joking about time zones and
Oh
organizing
yeah.
stuff like. How do you Americans do it? Like how? I don't
It's
understand.
nuts. I mean, it's crazy too, because like when my wife and I got married, we took a road trip. We drove south from we're based in Philadelphia, so we started in Philadelphia. We drove south down to uh Florida, or I think we did Georgia, and then we kind of like cut west. Yeah, and America is crazy big. It's just like really interesting. Once you get past like the Appalachian Mountains, like all of this dynamic, like on the East Coast, is a very similar kind of like biome and terrain kind of thing. But once you cross the Appalachian Mountains, like you're in like the plains. It seemed like every time we were driving, like every like 3 or 4 hours, we were in like a different kind of like land feeling. It was really crazy. Like, and like as you're going through like the different time zones, you're like, all right, what time zone is it? And then we have like daylight savings time. But I think we found out that as we were driving, that Arizona doesn't recognize daylight savings time. So they were like still in like central time or whatever, mountain time, whatever they are. It's nuts, man. It's really crazy.
But how? This one I don't understand. Why is it specifically different in Arizona? Like, was it just they went, "Nah, we're not going to pay
Yeah.
attention to that"?
They were just
Like,
like, I mean, I think they're ahead. Like, we really should get rid of daylight savings time at this point. It's a thing invented like for farmers basically, and it's like nobody is doing that anymore. Nobody is like using that as a like, okay, the sun's going down earlier. We need to go to sleep to conserve the gas that we're using to light the street lamps or whatever they're using. Should get rid of it.
oh yeah, it's actually quite funny as well because the only time thing we have over here is the daylight savings time thing.
Oh
It,
yeah,
it's always that thing where it's like you're either happy because you get an extra hour in bed, or you're sad you
yeah,
get less time to sleep. That's the only time we care about time. So just
yeah.
two
It's like
times a
just
year, that's it.
what's the vibe over there? Are they like in favor of keeping it, or are people just like, why do we do this? We should get rid of it.
Um, I don't know. We're just like this. Is just we just deal with it. We're British people. We don't want to be rude. We don't want to
Oh,
change
I
anything.
love
Stay with
it.
the status quo, as they might say.
That's
Oh,
great.
this is brilliant. I like the way I had to act up a British voice while I'm already British. Isn't that amazing?
I couldn't tell. It was great. It was great either way.
Oh, geez. It was actually funny. I was watching an old episode I did of the show once, and one of my guests was able to do a better Scottish accent than I could. And I'm like, that's
Oh,
not right. You're American and I'm British. How am I not doing the Scottish accent?
that's great. Oh
Oh,
yeah, man. We've been my son and I've been watching the Dragon Prince, and there's just like so many great. There's like this great Scottish actress on there. Like everybody's got these amazing accents, and we're just like, yeah, we don't have good accents, unfortunately.
yeah. Sort of going back and stuff like that to talking about continuing stuff, sort of one thing and stuff like that, which a lot of people and stuff like that would be quite interested and stuff with your channel is we've obviously seen a big change in the landscape of YouTube in terms of like how gaming content is sort of viewed and stuff like that and sort of audience retention and all that. Like a lot of people have now gone to the more live streaming space. They've gone that direction and stuff. That's more for them and stuff like that. But I know Continue still does that sort of format and stuff that sort of people were doing in the early 2010s, just sitting down, pre-recorded, sort of playing the game and stuff. Is there a sort of particular sort of reason sort of for that? Has there ever been discussions to move it to a live stream format? Because it definitely works for you guys, 100%.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. I think it like would work for us. I think like it was just never something we enjoyed doing. Like when we would do live streams, we were kind of just like, oh, that was cool. We got like X amount of people to see this. And at the time it was kind of like, okay, well, we just put in this work and this energy to do it for like X amount of people, and it's gone. There's no like life to it. I mean, you could go back and rewatch it, but I think for us, like whenever we were talking about making things, it was like, well, someone could watch this later on and still appreciate it. But I feel like with like the live stuff, it's like you're catching it and there's an excitement about it. It's like the way like it's one of the reasons like I love Saturday Night Live, because you're like watching it and it's happening, and it could go terribly at one thing, but and you want to like catch it, and it's like I, I'm watching this because it'll never happen again. I mean, you can watch it on reruns and stuff, but like this excitement, this energy, it's like it's fun. I get it, but like for us, we just never really like connected with that. I think we always enjoyed um producing something, like really like refining it. Like for us, like a lot of the comedy we feel comes from the editing we do, the jokes that we kind of like, a moment that might happen on the show that's just kind of like, oh, it's just a little thing, right? But like in editing and in post and stuff, you can find that moment and like extrapolate on it and really just make it into a bigger thing that's just more than just like a little aside that someone had. You can turn it into a big thing, and then it winds up being like a theme that runs throughout the episode. So like for us, it was always like more fun to like make the show and craft the show rather than just perform the show.
Oh yeah, and stuff like that. I can understand that and stuff. I know again, speaking of sort of when I used to do Let's Play content, like when you'd have like a golden moment, it was great when you could then do a reference to a TV show, or you
Yeah.
could like, I don't know, do an edit sort of like really zooming in on someone losing a match or something like that. Like
Yeah.
you can't do that live. You can try to play it up or maybe do like, people have their Steam Deck, so have like little like sounds things come up.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not the same as that pre-recorded sort of edited format, is it? It's quite different.
Yeah. And I feel like if you were to do that, like you could do that. I don't know. For us, it's like, it's a production thing too. Like when we were starting, like part of the challenge of us starting the show was like, how do we like capture this footage? Like how do we get gameplay footage onto our computer? Like we had been making movies and stuff, and short films, so we were very like familiar with digital video and stuff, but like getting it captured onto the thing, I remember we spent like a good amount of money to get like like an external like capture box basically, um to do that. And that's always been like something we've always like enjoyed. We want to like make this in like the highest quality possible. So for us to do like a live thing, I think we would be like, we'd have to hire a producer to like go back, and they'd have to have the same mindset that we do to kind of like make those moments, and make them happen live again. So like for us, I think it's just really like we're just comfortable making the show and we just enjoy making it. That I think to do it in another medium would be like, I don't know. I think we would lose some of the thing that makes it special for us.
Oh yeah, 100%. I can definitely sort of respect that and stuff.
Yeah,
And
and I think ultimately like I think that's like not a space for us anymore. I think it's kind of like, I mean, at this point, like all of us are close to, I'm over 40, Josh is over 40, Paul, I think, just turned 40 recently. So like we're old-ish at this point. Um, and I feel a lot of that is like a young person's game. So like let them let them go for it. Like this is also like we do so many varied other things in our lives that to kind of refocus our things into this other thing would be kind of futile for us. We just enjoy doing this so much and doing our other projects that it's just easier for us and just more fun and rewarding that way.
oh yeah, I can definitely sort of understand that. And I can definitely understand being old because I'm 21 now, so I'm getting on a bit,
Dude, you're in your prime, man. That's like the way to do it. Like jump in when you're young and just do it. You got like time and energy to blow through. Like, yeah, you don't have to worry about I woke up wrong or any of that old person stuff.
Yeah, I have to stop myself sometimes to be like, don't look for your grey hairs. You're still young, don't have to
Dude,
worry about
I wish, man. I have like two gray beard hairs, and I'm like, I would love like a full on salt and pepper kind of thing, but it's just not happening for me yet. But soon enough, I would imagine.
that. We spoke about your work with Continue and stuff. We spoke and stuff like that about some other things as well. And I'd be really interested to jump into a bit of other YouTube work you've done. And I think it's something a lot of people don't even know and stuff like that. You've actually sort of done sort of work for like this YouTuber. You've worked for them. You've actually done some work with Nerdstalgic, who's quite a
Mm,
famous sort of video essayist sort of channel and stuff. Funny enough, he's talking about The Office. I know he's done some,
yeah.
or they've done some Office content, sorry, over there and stuff. How did you start and sort of working for them, and what some of the videos you've worked on?
Yeah. So it's really funny. It's funny. It still like relates back to continue. So probably like 6 or 7 years ago, maybe. We had a student from a local college like email asking about like an internship to do an internship with us. and he was familiar with our work and stuff. And I was like, look, man, like we're not like an official company or anything like that, but like if you're looking to like get internship credit, I could, come up with some, I could kind of work with you to like figure out some ideas to help you get some experience with us. Obviously I don't want to like take advantage of your work or anything like that, but like, I could show you how we build an episode, and maybe you could try to like do, you know, replicate that as a way of experience. And he's like, yeah, I'll do whatever, man. I'm excited to like, do something applicable, as an internship. Because I remember when I had an internship in college, it was like I was like a production assistant for this like this feature film, and like they were like, okay, we're gonna get an exterior shot of this house. There's a pile of dirt there. We need to move the pile of dirt. And I was like, man, that's not what I like signed up for to do an internship for. Like a lot of my friends when they were in school, they were doing internships and they were like transcribing like video footage for like reality shows and stuff. And I was like, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do busy work. And then, so my main job, other than continue at the time, was I did video production for like a radio station morning show. Um, and we would get interns there, and same kind of thing. Like I want them to have hands-on experience. I don't want them to, kind of come in here and do busy work that I should be doing. I want them to like, I want us to like, I want them to cut something together. I give them notes on it. It helps them grow, helps them learn. It also like exposes me to like different people's, you know, editing styles and temperaments and stuff. So it was a really like great situation. So I wanted to replicate that with Brian, who became our intern for a bit, and he would like prep like our episodes. Like I would give him all the footage. He would sync it all together. He did a great job. He organized it. It's funny, like the way I used to organize it is not the way that he did it. He did it in a much more like great professional workflow. And it's still like, I changed the way I did it because of how he like prepped our episodes. And now that's how I prep the episodes to give to Paul and Josh to edit. So he worked with us for a bit. He got his internship credit. We hired him, um, part time to like edit some episodes for us to kind of give us a break. And then he was like, I found some work for this channel for Nostalgic. I don't think I'll be able to like devote time for both because they want me full time. I was like, that's great, man, go for it. So he started working there for them, doing editing and motion graphics and stuff. And then I was still working at the radio station at the time, and he was like, hey, like they're looking for other editors. So if you want something on the side to do is like extra income, like you could easily do that. I was like, yeah, sure, man. Like I love pop culture. I love movies. I love TV shows. And it was all in that wheelhouse. And so I started doing some stuff on the side, like freelance for them. And eventually they were like, can you do more for us? And I was like, I don't know if I can do more than what I'm already doing for you and do my regular job. And they're like, well, what would it take for you this to become your regular job? And I was like, well, I'd have to have consistency and all these things I laid out. And he's like, yeah, we could do that. So I kind of had this dilemma. It's like, do I leave this, being a video producer for a radio station, kind of a position that I created that they didn't have until I started working there, that I started and I was there for like 13 years. And at the time it was like, oh, the idea of working from home was really interesting and really enticing. So I wound up leaving my regular job to do full-time freelance, and Nostalgic is one of the people that I've been editing for the past 2 or 3 years at this point. It's still like a weird, all the things I do are a strange like version of storytelling. Even like editing continue, you're still telling a beginning, middle, and end. You're still having like a thread throughout. um Paul and I have been writing these children's comic books and stuff, and that's like another version of storytelling. And even like these nostalgic videos are a version of storytelling where they have the script and they're the thesis and everything, and the examples are kind of laid out from the written portion, but then I get to come in with the visual side and do like an additional layer of storytelling, to convey the feeling or the vibe of what they're trying to go, and also like include these like, either humorous cutaways to something or something, a cutaway that would like really enhance the point that they're trying to bring. So it's a really like interesting part of storytelling that I can bring to that, to their videos. So yeah, it's been great. It's been really fun.
It's quite funny because it also links back to what we were saying about earlier in terms of like not thinking about the production sort of side of things and stuff when you're a viewer and sort of the impact you can have with like editing and sort of other sort of production sort of pieces, cinematography and all that. Like you can provide that and stuff like that for those guys at sort of nostalgic and stuff. And you can definitely probably say then that your previous experience, sorry, with doing stuff with Continue and stuff like that, like comedy sort of space and other work you've done, definitely would have influenced then your work there.
Yeah, totally. And it's kind of one of those things too where it's like, you could just it could just be like, oh, the behind the scenes of the film was tumultuous, right? And I could just show, you know, a behind the scenes clip. You know what I mean? But for me, it's like I'd rather find a clip where people look tense or people look like stressed out. Like for me, like that's an extra level of storytelling to be like, oh, well, now the viewer isn't just seeing like, oh, they're seeing behind the scenes, they're seeing, wow, they're experiencing it, they're in there. So it adds like a little bit too, and I really like enjoy that part of it. And like making motion graphics for these things is really fun too. So like it's you're right, it all kind of like folds back in on itself of like I don't know if what I had done before would have led me here, or if I would be prepared, mentally, creatively to do those kind of things if I hadn't done all the things that I had done previously.
Oh yeah, it's that thread in it and stuff like that. What you've done before, it can then impact and stuff like that. Sort of, further parts of your career and stuff like that. You end up here, there, and stuff. I've benefited from that myself. With this podcast, like
Yeah,
having certain guests on have allowed me to get other people on, and sort of it's been amazing. Sort of the opportunities that can arise because of sort of who you know and what you've done before. So it's
yeah.
definitely sort of very impactful and
I mean,
sort of.
look, like 90% of doing creative things is just like showing up and doing the work. Because otherwise, you could just talk about like what an idea could be for hours on end, but like until you sit down and actually like do it, it just doesn't exist. And you have to like you have to like birth it into the universe. Otherwise, it just an idea that spoils in your brain and then never sees the light of day.
Oh yeah, that's one that to me I hate when like I can't have an idea come to fruition and stuff like that. I try to like with this podcast, for instance, I've sat on sort of doing something like this for like years and years. I wanted to really get back into doing YouTube content and stuff. I took a sort of a big long break from 2018 to roughly about mid 2022. I should know. I just had the anniversary of the show. I should remember when the podcast came back.
I mean, time is weird now. Like I don't know how time works anymore, man. So don't sweat it.
I just can't believe I'm in my third year of like doing this because I just think I look back and I'm like, it can't have been 2 years. Like, and I'm
Yeah,
like, no, yeah, it would have been because this happened here and it's
yeah,
just madness. But yeah, like I sort of was sitting on this idea sort of for years doing a podcast, and I'm so happy that I was like, no, you know what I mean? If I've got to have this idea come to fruition. I can't just let it stew here in my brain, like you were saying, whatever. So sort of I can definitely sort of connect and sort of relate with that.
yeah. And you can have those like intrusive ideas where it's like, you know, there are so many podcasts or there's so many things like what I'm trying to do out there. Like, should I even try that? Am I special enough to break through? It's like, it doesn't matter. As long as you're enjoying it, I think that's the most important thing. It's like just making things and creating things is like half the reason to like live, like just do the things that you want to do. Like it doesn't matter. Stop trying to worry what people think about it. I try to now just be like, I don't really care. I'm doing this for me. It doesn't matter.
To sort of now go and stuff like that into a sort of a little bit of different and sort of work and stuff you've done and all stuff like that, like content work, whatever and stuff. Going back to sort of the work and stuff like that, you and sort of you like to do with like Paul and Josh and all that. I know that you guys and stuff like that also have a Pretend Friends podcast and stuff like that. I believe you three do it. And I know you also all do your own sort of podcast projects and stuff. Sort of what was the appeal for you guys to do sort of podcast sort of content and all that? Obviously, a lot of people are into it now, obviously, like myself and stuff. What was
Yeah.
the sort of all appeal behind that?
Yeah. We had done a podcast called the Continue Cast, and it was kind of like an extension of the show where it's almost like a video game book club where each episode was a different game that we would all play and share our thoughts and stuff. And that just wound up being a little too much to do on the regular. It's just hard to like jump into a game and then speak about it. With confidence in that amount of time. So our friend Kevin Cole came up with like a role playing system called Space Kings, where instead of using dice for like tabletop role playing, you were just using a deck of cards, something that everybody has and everybody can like be familiar with. And he explained this system to us, and he was talking about trying to do a podcast with it. So we all kind of collaborated and started doing Pretend Friends. That's what became Pretend Friends, and that was really cool. That was like my first experience doing any kind of role playing. I'd never done D&D or anything like that before, but as soon as we started doing it, I really it really like sparked something in me, and like it really like I don't know, it just really ignited something really nice because whenever we would do our own film kind of content or like short films or any kind of writing or anything, um, the thought was always like, we're going to write this thing and eventually we're going to make it. And that end goal of us actually making it really kind of like stifled some of the creativity or some of the process of writing it, because it's like, oh, we can't write this big scene because how logistically will we film this or do this, right? So with Pretend Friends, we really could just imagine, and it just like didn't matter. Like whatever we could like imagine and come up with is what we came up with. And the idea of like telling a story like collaboratively like that was something we would do writing, but now we were doing it together on the fly and like reacting to different things. It was really magical. It really just like really stuck with me and really like unlocked something in my brain that I was like, I like this aspect of it a lot. And that's where I started being like, oh, well, the things I'm doing before are aspects of storytelling. I just never realized it before. I never really like picked up on it. Um, so we did 3 seasons together. We did two like a sci-fi series, then we did like a fantasy series. And I would like to go back to it at some point because it was really great. But doing that podcast, so one of the someone who would listen to the podcast was one of the editors for this company Epic for Kids, which is like a book company. They have like an app where kids can read. It's like a digital library of like all these books and publications and stuff, and they started making their own content, making their own graphic novels. And he was like, oh, you guys should try writing this graphic novel for us. And we were like, I was like, I don't know how to do that. And he's like, oh, it's really easy. You guys, I've listened to Pretend Friends, you guys would be great at it. So he kind of just gave us like carte blanche to like just write our first comic book. So we wrote it, Paul and I, and they released it. It's called Cosmic Pizza Party. It's about these three friends that start a intergalactic food truck that make pizza all around the galaxy and stuff. So it's like 5 issues. It was really cool. It was really freeing. It was the same kind of thing where it's just like we can write anything we want. There's no constraint. The only constraint is that it has to fit on 22 pages per issue, and that was it. And it was like that was cool. It was a cool way to. It was like a nice, interesting new way to do storytelling. It was really like fascinating. And then since then, we've written several books for Epic and some of their like most popular titles like Cat Ninja and Time Buddies. And so like we've just been doing some random things from that. And I think from that, it's going to launch some other things into some other spaces that's just going to really move us more into like the writing aspect than the filmmaking aspect.
And it must be sort of great and stuff like that for yourself and stuff like that, and for sort of you and stuff like that and the other guys, where you get these opportunities to like work and stuff like that on these different projects, you know what I mean, sort of together, sort of with them, whatever, you do continue, but then you can also work collaboratively in sort of other spaces, it's got different themes, different purposes, you know what I mean, you're sort of doing something different, like sort of creatively sort of with them, and just for yourself being able to have all these different avenues and stuff like that to be creative, like it must be nice to sort of diversify your creativity with yourself and just sort of the other guys.
Yeah, it's been it was definitely like a long time. I think for me, when we started getting traction with Continue and it was like working really well, I just kind of thought we would, it would be the three of us forever. We would be like the Beastie Boys, and we would just be like, well, this is it. This is the thing. But then everyone started to kind of do their own thing on the side. And at first I was like, oh man, they don't want to do with me. And took it to heart. And then realized that, oh, I'm also doing that to them. I'm doing these other things on the side, not to spite them or just because I wanted to do them. And that's what they're doing as well. So once I kind of like got past that feeling in myself, it was like, oh, everybody can do their own thing and we can just come back to this thing that brought us all together and keep doing it. But not feel slighted or jealous or anything like that. But it's nice that like everybody kind of has their own thing that they're doing, and we just get the band back together and goof around for a bit.
Oh yeah, I mean, like I've said sort of earlier on in the show, whatever. It's great that you guys and stuff like that are still about, still doing stuff together, still making content together. That's sort of amazing and stuff. And unfortunately and stuff, you guys are still continuing, but this podcast episode has to come to an end and stuff like that, you know. And I'd like to sort of give you and stuff like that, sort of the last question, stuff like that, question that I ask with every episode, at the end of every episode, and stuff like that. If you was to give somebody a piece of advice, let's say it was me, for instance, what's the most important piece of advice and stuff like you would give that person?
Uh, yeah, I mean, it's just, I think when you're a creative person, you just kind of have to like follow your weirdness. You know, it's kind of like the only thing that makes you you and makes you like able to do what you can do, because if anyone else could do it, they would just do it, you know, but not everybody can. So that's why they have creative people to come and like create things, because not everybody can create things and it's hard to create things. So, like I said earlier, like 90% of it is just showing up and doing it and doing the work. And like it might not be great, and it might be not great for a while, but like you were saying, you'll look back, you know, I can't believe we've done it this long, or I've gotten this far. And I'm sure you'll look back on your early work and be like, this is terrible. But I've learned so much front since then. And I do the same thing with all of my work. It's like a lot of the stuff we were doing back then was so rough and unpolished, and now we're much better. And now, you know, 5 years later, I'll look back on this and be like, wow, the stuff we were doing at this time was not great, but I'm getting better. That's really all it is. Just keep trying to improve yourself.
Yeah, that's sort of a brilliant stuff like that, you know, piece of advice, whatever, and stuff like that. Something I can definitely relate to and stuff. Definitely can relate to that thing of looking at your earlier episodes, your early experiences, going, oh, I don't know, sort of about that. This wasn't as good. I'd change this, change that, and it helps
Yeah.
you then sort of down the line with, you know, when you've got this experience and stuff like that. You know what you're doing and stuff like that. You've really sort of got into your stride and all that. Like I starting this podcast when I did a couple of years ago, what definitely helped was having that experience doing video making and even interviews and stuff like
Yeah.
that. So sort of taking these ideas, doing these ideas earlier, it can all build up your experience, your confidence, and it's just great to sometimes give things a go. So that piece of advice is definitely very like sort of good to give out.
Yeah. And I think about it too, like, you know, the person who you were 5 years ago is not the person you are today. And so, you know, you as a person are always growing. So why would your work not also grow and improve?
Yeah, 100%, 100% connect with that. And like I said, unfortunately, and stuff, that's the end and stuff like that of another fantastic episode and stuff. Before we go, sort of anything you want to sort of shout out to the viewers and stuff like that, any future plans maybe you've got coming up?
Yeah, I mean, you could follow us on YouTube. We're Continue Show on there. Like I said, it's just a fun series that we love making, and it's just goofy and silly, and it's really just, you know, we're having a party and we want you to come over to our clubhouse and have fun with us.
Oh, that's sort of nice. Definitely do check out and stuff like that. The show, stuff like that is fantastic and stuff like that. I've sort of known about it and stuff like that for many, many years. I believe like a decade now, maybe just over a decade.
Wow,
So,
that's
like, it's
crazy.
quite crazy to think. You know what I mean? It's like I said, talking about time, and I'm like, wow, I've known you guys that long. It's like crazy and
Ah,
stuff. So,
that's nuts.
definitely go check them out. Sort of go check out the other stuff and stuff this guy's doing. You know what I mean? I'm so happy I was able to get him onto the show today. He's a fantastic guy, fantastic guest. I'm a fantastic host, of course. So everything's
It's
fantastic
true.
here
It's
on
very
the
true. Yeah.
episode.
I appreciate the invite for such a fantastic host.
Oh, thank you. That gives me my validation for the day now. So that's all I needed. It's been another fantastic episode of the show and stuff like that. Fantastic start to season 2 of the podcast, kicking off a new era and stuff like that for the podcast and stuff like that. It's absolutely fantastic. But anyway, hope you guys enjoyed this episode. See you guys next time. I remember to look at the camera now, right near the end. Just about caught it at the end. I'm terrible for it, but we're going to get better in season 2. I promise. Looking at the camera, I'm going to improve on that. Anyway, see you guys next time. Peace out.